tell me, when was the last time you felt fully present and alive, or the last time you felt real joy in the moment? These are some of the questions my next guest asks the women she treats in her practice. The hard truth is most women she sees can't answer these questions. Welcome to sexual health and libido expert Dr. Jordan Wiggins. Jordan, you say there is another pandemic happening, and that pandemic is a lack of pleasure in women. Can you explain what you mean by that?
I mean that 1 in 2 women will suffer from sexual dysfunction in their lifetime. And medically speaking, that is having pain with sex, not being able to orgasm, lacking desire for sex, or struggling to get aroused and stay aroused. Many of the women that I work with are so disconnected from their pleasure. They feel like sex is another item that they need to check off their to-do list, that they really lack drive altogether.
I want to deal with this, though, for a moment. Part of the narrative in society is that women just have lower sex drives than men. Do you find this to be true in your research?
I want to say something very controversial, Tracy. Sex is not a drive.
Okay, so if it isn't a drive, what is it?
So hunger is a drive. The longer we go without food, we are going to need to eat. However, sex is a reward system. So the less sex we have, the less sex we're going to want. And the more sex we have, the more sex we're going to want. So people just think that one day they're going to wake up and their desire problem will be fixed, but it really doesn't work that way. It's a vicious cycle.
Okay, this is really interesting. So this is where libidos come into play, I imagine.
Exactly. This is the misconception about libido. We seem to think that we can do nothing about it, pay no attention to it, and it's just going to be there when we need it. But that's not how it works. Another misconception is that the men are always the higher drive partner, which isn't always true. What we need to do is expect that we're going to have mismatched libidos, differing levels of desire in relationships and at life stages, so that we can plan for it and do things that work for both parties in a relationship.
Okay, so I need to get to this. What should we be doing? Like, how do you fix that? Because if you don't use it, you lose it. So what should you be doing to make sure you use it?
So we need to make pleasure a practice, just like any other form of self-care. We prioritize exercise, diet, sleeping well. We need to get intimacy on our calendar. So scheduling intimacy dates is something that I always recommend.
And I bet you hear this all the time, but sex is supposed to be spontaneous. Is that just all a lie?
This is another myth that we need to bust, Tracy. Most people think that spontaneous sex is somehow better, and they're always trying to get back to that honeymoon phase where they assumed that their sexual encounters were spontaneous. But let's think about that for a second. When we were first dating, we picked the restaurant, we planned our outfit, how we groomed, and anticipation and desire built throughout the day. So really, there was nothing spontaneous about it at all.
It's interesting, though, because I'm thinking of, married couples. You're seeing each other every day. There's no absence to make the heart grow fonder. We're stuck at home together because it's a pandemic. How are you supposed to, recreate all of the plans you made in the early stages when you were still courting? How do you do that?
Things like play and physical contact are 2 things that we want to be including. So play, anything that can get our heart rate up, get us laughing, competitive. So it could even be a board game at home. And physical contact, where phones are away, we are looking into each other's eyes, we are holding hands, taking time to hold each other. And all of those things are going to release hormone cascades that aren't the same, but they feel like that when we first met feeling.
And hopefully, Dr. Jordan, it doesn't end in a fight. Before we go, I want to talk about Anhedonia, which I don't know if I pronounced that properly, but can you explain what that is and what to do about it?
So, anhedonia is the lack of pleasure or joy. This is something that I've experienced myself and is commonly misdiagnosed in women. So, we don't really know how to put it into words, but women will say, I don't feel like myself. Something's off. The things that used to make me happy don't make me happy anymore. If one more thing gets added to my to-do list, I feel like I'm going to break. And that is lacking a pleasure mindset and lacking desire.
I would love to know, just in closing, what does a healthy, pleasure-focused mindset look like? How should we be thinking and what should we be doing to bring back that joy?
We need to start with really small things. Having our coffee in a mug in the morning that makes us feel good. Buying fresh flowers, like little ways that we can put pleasure and joy dressing in something that makes us feel awesome. Those things will help take our mindset from the anhedonia lack of joy into accepting and receiving more pleasure. And stress is one of the biggest reasons why this isn't happening. Because when we are stressed out and our nervous systems are in the sympathetic nervous response, we actually cannot process and receive pleasure. So when your partner comes up and tries to initiate something, you just want to shut it down because that part of your brain is actually turned off.
Okay, but we should fight that, you're saying. Fight that so that you actually allow the pleasure to come towards you versus shutting it down.
Yes. Time on the calendar, even if you feel like you want to strangle your partner because you've been stuck at home for a while, find ways to play, find ways to just sit and look in each other's eyes and remember who the person is that you fell in love with, and maybe even ask, what was your impression of me when we first met? That one always takes us back, and it's a really good way to drop in.
I love it. Okay, remember that really hot guy you started dating. He's still in there. He's still in there. Listen, thank you, Dr. Jordan Wiggins. That was great. I feel like we're just scratching the surface, but anything about joy, I'm into it. So thank you for shedding light on some of these issues.